When he first came into the UFC, I'll admit I was a big Ian Garry hater. I felt like he was overconfident. I felt like he was an overhyped prospect who touted himself as the next Conor McGregor, even going so far as to steal Conor McGregor's lines in the cage. I was definitely turned off by the brash personality and what looked like to me to be an undeveloped game. He came in the UFC and debuted against Jordan Williams and was getting pieced up. I was not impressed. He got his head snapped back from these straight punches as we see here, and his cage control did not look good. As the fight went on, he managed to find a kill shot in the form of this perfect right hand that he drops Jordan Williams with and later puts his lights out. This carried Ian Garry's goodwill a little bit further and got him into some favorable matchups in his next few fights. Fights that he was definitely supposed to win, but he didn't look impressive doing so. Against Darian Weeks, it was a very close decision, a contentious decision even. They gave it to Garry, but a lot of people felt like Weeks could have won. The Gabriel Green fight was uninspired to say the least, and the Song Kenan fight, he was getting his head knocked around until he finally found the finish in the third round. At this point in Ian Garry's career, I think the general consensus was that the guy was overhyped. He was over-touted, kind of similar to how people see Paddy Pimblett. You know, kind of earning a lot more shine than his fighting deserves, but certainly a talented fighter. Nonetheless, I don't think anybody saw him as a future champion, but a lot of people had respect for his game, especially after the Song Kenan fight where he was able to show his grit from that come-from-behind victory. Then something changed. People started paying a lot more attention to Ian Garry's personal life around this time and bringing up her wife, her past relationships, and things like that. Now me, I don't really care about any of these things. You know, we're all adults here at the end of the day, and I don't care what the guy's into, if he's a cuck or not, or what he does in the bedroom, or what his wife does, etc. I don't really care about that. We're here to talk about fighting, and this guy is a very talented fighter. The prime example of this is what he did in the Daniel Rodriguez fight. This performance brought a lot more goodwill for Ian Garry than anything I'd seen up to that point. Garry, in an interview with, I believe, Ariel Helwani, or some other MMA show, before the fight told reporters, "I'm going to knock him out with a right head kick. If it's not a right head kick, then it's a mistake. If I get a knockout and it's not with the right head kick, I made a mistake and it was an accident. It was a lucky shot." He goes out there against Daniel Rodriguez, who is a tough out, all things considered, and certainly not a top contender, but a very good fighter. And he knocks him out exactly how he said he was going to knock him out. This showed to me, and a lot of fellow MMA pundits, that this guy is not only a talented fighter and a good personality for the sport in terms of being polarizing, but he really knows what he's looking for in there, and fight IQ is one of those things you just can't teach. It's either something fighters have or they don't. So this was a very promising addition to Ian Garry's game. From then on, I kept a close eye on Garry, and yet still in the back of my mind, I rooted for him to lose. I still had a lingering feeling that he was a Conor McGregor clone or wannabe, and I felt like he should be trying to pave his own way, but I had a certain respect for his fighting ability. Yes, he was talented in those first few fights, but it wasn't as impressive as people were making him out to be and how they wanted him to be. Against Neil Magny, he passed another huge fight IQ test. He did exactly what you're supposed to do when you fight Neil Magny. He kicked his legs, he punched him in the face, and he didn't fall into the clinch game where Magny can drown people. Garry has a pretty good clinch game of his own right. It's something that he's developed throughout his career, and it's a part of MMA today that you really can't ignore, especially against the cage, and Garry's particularly skilled at holding guys against the cage and landing effective strikes there. Against Neil Magny, he was able to put a whooping on him for 3 rounds. Not an entirely unfounded performance. It wasn't like people had Garry as the underdog, but he did exactly what he was supposed to do and passed an IQ test there. And then he went on to fight Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is an extremely tough fighter, and one at this point who is the highest ranked and most close to their prime fighter that Ian Garry fought. Jeff Neal brought it to Ian Garry, and took advantage of his lack of effective defense by landing a bunch of hooks on the feet. Jeff was also able to get good success in the clinch with the strikes, a place where he had always been dangerous. Ian Garry did win the 3rd round of this fight, and you can make an argument that he won rounds 1 or 2, but some judges gave him all 3 rounds. This was an egregious decision, in my opinion. I think a lot of people felt that Jeff Neal won the fight. Ian Garry did a good job in surviving, but I think a lot of people felt that Jeff Neal won the first 2 rounds, and the MMA Decisions fan-base polling reflects that. However, Ian Garry goes forward with the split decision victory and moves forward to the top of the division. He takes a bit of a step back against Michael Venom Page. I say that because MVP wasn't a highly ranked fighter, but rather a big name. And in this fight, Ian Garry showed another fold of his deep fight IQ game. Garry wanted to strike. He wanted to test his striking, but MVP is so fast. He's so dangerous, and it just doesn't make sense to fight him at his own game. So Ian Garry took the easier route and wrestled him to a decision victory. It wasn't pretty, but it was a smart performance against a very tricky fighter and showed yet another fold of Ian Garry's game. The guy is here to win. He's not here necessarily to make fans with his fighting style. He knows that he makes fans from outside the cage, from being a brass personality, from being confident, etc. In the cage, what he cares about is winning the fight. He takes the path of least resistance and will take advantage of his opponent's glaring weaknesses if they show themselves. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest tools you can have as a fighter. There are several legends throughout history who had a similar approach. John Jones, GSP, and Demetrius Johnson are all amongst these type of fighters. Guys who would look for your weaknesses and have a complete enough game that they could exploit anybody in one particular spot if they needed to. Ian Garry is building this type of game right now. Coming off of that uninspired but necessary performance against Michael Venom Page, he fought Shavkat Rakhmonov and showed more than anything his heart. Shavkat was the division's boogeyman, and kind of still is. He's tenacious, he hits really hard, and he always keeps coming forward. Ian Garry handled this pressure by taking the fight to the ground. It was a fight that, going in, I think a lot of people felt if it stayed on the feet, it's good for Ian Garry, and if it goes to the ground, it's good for Shavkat. However, Garry flipped the script on this by getting Shavkat in a couple of very close submission attempts. Although he wasn't able to finish the submissions because he was using a less than ideal hand grip on his rear naked choke, Ian Garry put Shavkat in some really bad positions and definitively won 2 rounds against the division's boogeyman. He didn't win the fight. He didn't get the title shot from that fight, but he fought his heart out, and although he didn't win the decision, he won a lot of favor in the fans' eyes from his respectable performance. From here, Ian Garry makes an even crazier decision and fights Carlos Prates on 3 weeks' notice, another divisional boogeyman who is knocking out everybody with one punch. Ian Garry fights Carlos Prates for 5 rounds and is almost perfect through most of the fight. It's only until the 5th round that he slips up and starts to give ground. Unfortunately, what giving ground looks like to Carlos Prates is like almost getting your head knocked off. But Ian Garry won this decision clearly with 4 rounds to 1 and fought with a very smart game plan to beat the divisional boogeyman once again in Carlos Prates. Garry employed a very interesting style of forcing Prates to be on defense throughout the majority of the fight. He threw up such high volume numbers, he threw up a bunch of head kicks and punches to the head that forced Prates to raise his hands in a way that he couldn't throw the punches the way that he's comfortable with. Carlos Prates a lot of times likes to fire from the hip. He finds unorthodox angles to catch people with straights, uppercuts, hooks, and other punches they don't see coming. And that adds to his brand of sneaky power. I've always talked about Carlos Prates as the Alex Pereira of welterweight, a guy with a lanky build who hits really hard, but you wouldn't be able to tell it from looking at him. He looks like he's just throwing out feeler punches, and then when they land, it looks like he has bricks for hands. Ian Garry was able to avoid this devastating power for 20 minutes of the fight, and it was nothing short of commendable. The dude had a super impressive performance against Carlos Prates here and won over my full attention and opinion of him as a fighter. I thought Prates was going to win against Garry. I thought Shavkat was going to win against Garry. I picked Jeff Neal. I picked Daniel Rodriguez. I picked Gabe Green, of all people. Even Darian Weeks, after the fight with Jordan Williams, I picked him against Ian Garry. I picked against him every step of the way, and he's proved me wrong every step of the way. And now at this point, I have to accept the truth. This guy is really good. He's an extremely smart fighter. He's extremely capable. He has a great frame for MMA. He's long, he's lanky. He doesn't hit particularly hard, but he has good timing and some very clean technique. A deep bag of techniques that he can go to on the feet. When he goes to the cage clinch, he's very strong there. When he goes to the ground, he's confident enough to stay on top, and if he ends up on the bottom, he has good enough jiu-jitsu to mitigate the damage and get back to his feet. He's a complete MMA fighter, and the biggest tool in his toolbox is his fight IQ. Ian Garry, in my opinion, is the number 1 contender at welterweight right now after beating Bilal Muhammad the way he did in November. I don't think you can make an argument for anyone else right now that's stronger than Ian Garry's. The guy clearly has the best skill set at the top 5. He's got a much more complete game than Michael Morales, although he doesn't have the power that Michael Morales does. He has a victory over Carlos Prates, who's surging right now. He hasn't fought Jack Della Maddalena. He hasn't fought Islam Makhachev. He hasn't fought these guys because he hasn't had the opportunity to do so. And I think considering how he's approached every fight so far, he probably has a couple tricks in his bag for those guys when that time comes. I'm excited for Ian Garry's future, and I think you should be too if you're a fan of the fights. Forget about his character outside of the cage. Forget about his personality, his interviews, watch his fights, and see this guy do amazing work. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate y'all, and have a lovely day.